Polo Grounds, New York. Late afternoon, summer 1922. The Yankees have just finished another game in what is becoming the worst season of Babe Ruth's career. The great Bambino, the Sultan of SWAT, the man who changed baseball forever, is hitting .095. The crowd has been booing him for weeks, mercilessly. They cheer sarcastically when he catches routine fly balls. They laugh when he strikes out. This is Ruth's punishment for defying Commissioner Landis and barnstorming after the 1921 World Series. He was suspended for the first 39 days of the season. His captaincy, which he held for exactly 6 days, was stripped away. And now that he is back, he cannot buy a hit. The pressure is crushing him. The humiliation is eating at him. And his temper, always volcanic, is completely out of control. He has been suspended 5 times already this season. He threw dirt in an umpire's face. He challenged another umpire to a fistfight under the stands. He climbed into the stands to attack a heckler. And on this particular afternoon, something happens on the field that nobody in the dugout can quite believe. During the 8th inning, the opposing team has a runner on third base, 1 out, a ground ball to the infield. The runner breaks for home. It is a close play. Waite Hoyt, pitching, does not back up home plate. The runner scores. Ruth is standing in left field. He is not even involved in the play. But he sees it. He sees Hoyt standing on the mound, not moving, not hustling. And in Ruth's mind, which is already dark with frustration and anger, this is unforgivable. This is laziness. This is showing him up. This is making the team look bad. Something snaps. After the inning ends, Ruth storms into the dugout. His face is red. His jaw is set. He walks directly to where Hoyt is sitting. And he says 5 words that everyone hears. "Don't you ever show me up again." Hoyt looks at him, says nothing. The dugout goes silent. Manager Miller Huggins pulls Hoyt from the game immediately. Not because Hoyt has pitched poorly, but because Huggins can feel what is building. He knows Ruth. He knows when something bad is coming, and he is trying to prevent it. But some things cannot be prevented. Some things have already been set in motion. The game ends, the Yankees win, but nobody is celebrating, because in the locker room, something is about to happen that will split the team apart for 2 years. Waite Hoyt is 22 years old. He is the Yankees' ace pitcher. He has been with the team since 1921 when he came over from the Red Sox in the same pipeline that brought Ruth to New York. He is talented, confident, maybe too confident for his own good. He has been called the schoolboy wonder because he signed his first professional contract at age 15. By 22, he has already won a World Series. He is not afraid of anyone, not even Babe Ruth. After the game, Hoyt goes through his usual routine. He sits in front of his locker, takes off his uniform, heads to the showers. The hot water feels good. The game is over. He has been pulled early, but the Yankees won. Tomorrow is another day. He finishes showering, wraps a towel around his waist, walks back to his locker, sits down on the wooden bench, drops the towel. He is completely naked. This is normal. This is what players do. They shower, they sit, they get dressed, they go home. But on this day, normal is about to become very abnormal very quickly. The locker room door opens. Babe Ruth walks in. He is still in full uniform, pants, jersey, belt. And most importantly, his spikes. The metal cleats click against the concrete floor. Click, click, click. Every player in the room hears it. Every player knows that sound. And every player suddenly stops what they are doing. Because Ruth's face tells them something is wrong. Ruth walks directly toward Hoyt's locker. His massive frame fills the narrow aisle between the rows of lockers. He is 6 feet 2 inches tall, 215 pounds of muscle and anger. Hoyt is sitting on the bench, naked, vulnerable. He looks up, sees Ruth coming, and he knows. Ruth stops directly in front of him, towers over him, calls him names, ugly names, words that echo off the tile walls. Then Ruth says it, "I will punch you in the nose." The locker room is absolutely silent, 20 men holding their breath, waiting to see what Hoyt will do. Will he apologize? Will he back down? Will he try to defuse the situation? Hoyt does none of these things. Instead, he stands up, completely naked, looks Ruth in the eye, and says 4 words that make everything explode. Well, you are not tied. It happens faster than anyone can process. Ruth draws his right leg back and kicks. The spike on his shoe, still caked with dirt from the outfield grass, still sharp from being professionally sharpened before every game, connects with Hoyt's naked ribs, metal against flesh. The sound is sickening. A dull thud combined with a scraping noise as the metal drags across skin. Blood appears immediately. Not a lot. But enough. A line of red across Hoyt's torso, where the spike caught him. Hoyt does not scream, does not fall, does not show pain. Instead, something primal takes over. He lunges forward, completely naked, completely exposed, completely beyond caring. His fist swings in a wide arc, connects with Ruth's jaw. The crack of knuckle on bone echoes in the locker room. Ruth's head snaps to the side. For a fraction of a second, he looks surprised, shocked that this naked kid just hit him. Then the surprise turns to fury. Ruth stumbles back half a step, not from the force of the punch, from the shock of it. Then he comes forward swinging, his massive fists hardened from years of gripping a bat, from fighting in the streets of Baltimore, from a lifetime of violence, begin flying. Two men, one fully dressed in a baseball uniform with metal spikes on his shoes, one completely naked, still wet from the shower, trading punches in the middle of a professional baseball locker room. It is chaos, brutal chaos, fists flying, bodies crashing into lockers. The metal lockers boom like drums with each impact. Equipment falling, bats clattering to the floor, gloves flying, shoes kicked aside, other players shouting, some cheering, some horrified. Everyone paralyzed by the sheer violence of it. Teammates rush forward trying to separate them, but Ruth and Hoyt are locked together, wrestling, punching, grappling, neither willing to stop, neither willing to back down. Hoyt gets Ruth in a headlock. Ruth lifts him off the ground, slams him against a locker, the door dents. Hoyt's head bounces off the metal, but he does not let go. And Ruth throws an elbow, connects with Hoyt's temple. Hoyt's grip loosens. Ruth spins, throws another punch. This one catches Hoyt in the eye. Already it is swelling. And then the smallest man in the room does something incredibly brave and incredibly stupid. Miller Huggins is the Yankees manager. He is 5 feet 6 inches tall. He weighs 140 pounds. He looks like a child compared to the men he manages. But he has authority. He has courage. And he has had enough. Huggins pushes through the crowd of players, gets between Ruth and Hoyt, puts his hands up, tries to physically separate two men who together weigh more than 350 pounds and are both trying to kill each other. "Stop this right now," Huggins shouts, but his voice is lost in the chaos. Ruth throws another punch, aimed at Hoyt. Huggins is in the way. The fist connects. Huggins' head snaps back. He stumbles, nearly falls, but he does not move. He stays between them, takes another blow, this one from Hoyt, meant for Ruth, catches Huggins on the shoulder. The tiny manager is getting beaten by both of his star players, and still he does not move. Finally, other players get involved. Big men, strong men. They grab Ruth from behind, wrap their arms around him, pull him backward. Others grab Hoyt, hold his arms, separate the two fighters. Huggins stands in the middle, breathing hard, his face red, his suit rumpled, blood on his lip from where one of the punches caught him. He looks at Ruth, then at Hoyt. Then he speaks, and what he says is not what anyone expects. "Get dressed, both of you, and get out of my locker room. Now." Ruth is pulled away first, still in his uniform, still wearing his spikes. He is breathing hard, his knuckles are bleeding. He looks back at Hoyt one more time. His eyes are cold, dead. He does not say anything, he just stares. Then he turns and walks out. The metal spikes click against the floor. Click, click, click. Getting fainter, until the door slams shut. Hoyt stands there, still naked, his body showing red marks where Ruth's punches landed, where the spike connected. He is bleeding from his ribs, not badly, but enough. Teammates bring him a towel. He wraps it around himself, sits down, and for the first time since the fight started, he speaks. He had it coming. Nobody says anything, because nobody knows if Hoyt is talking about Ruth or himself. The next day, Ruth and Hoyt arrive at the ballpark at different times. They go through their pre-game routines. They do not speak. They do not make eye contact. They exist in the same space but in different worlds. This continues the next day, and the next, and the next. Weeks pass. The silence becomes its own presence. During batting practice, if Hoyt is in the cage, Ruth waits until he is done. If they pass in the hallway, one of them changes direction. In team meetings, they sit on opposite sides of the room. On the train, they occupy different cars. In hotels, they request rooms on different floors. Ruth and Hoyt are teammates. They play for the same team. They sit in the same dugout. They travel on the same trains. They stay in the same hotels. And they do not speak. Not one word. The other Yankees notice. How could they not? Two of their best players refusing to acknowledge each other's existence. Lou Gehrig, when he joins the team in 1923, thinks it is a joke at first, all some kind of hazing ritual. But then he sees Ruth walk past Hoyt's locker without even a glance, sees Hoyt deliberately turn his back when Ruth enters the dining car, and Gehrig realizes this is serious, this is permanent. Teammates start adjusting. If they are talking to Ruth and Hoyt walks up, they have to choose, continue the conversation and exclude Hoyt, or acknowledge Hoyt and have Ruth walk away. It creates divisions, awkwardness. The whole dynamic of the team shifts around this invisible wall between two men who used to be friends. It creates tension, awkwardness, sides are formed. Some players think Ruth was right. The great Babe Ruth, the face of baseball, should not be shown up by a cocky young pitcher. Some think Hoyt was justified. Ruth overreacted. Ruth threw the first punch. Ruth kicked a naked man with metal spikes. And most just wish it would end. But it does not end. Summer turns to fall. The 1922 season ends. The Yankees win the pennant but lose the World Series to the Giants. Ruth has his worst season ever. Hoyt pitches well, but the animosity between them never fades. The 1923 season begins. Spring training, opening day, summer games. Ruth and Hoyt still do not speak. They are professionals. They do their jobs. But the silence between them is louder than any argument. It hangs in the air, poisonous, permanent. Teammates try to intervene. Lou Gehrig, who joins the team in 1923, notices it immediately. He asks Ruth about it. Ruth just shakes his head, says nothing. He asks Hoyt. Hoyt says the same thing Ruth said in the locker room that day. He had it coming. By 1924, the silence has lasted nearly 2 years, 2 full seasons, hundreds of games, and thousands of shared moments, and not one word between them. It seems like it will never end, like Ruth and Hoyt will finish their careers having never spoken again. But then something happens, something small, something that should not matter. But somehow it does. The Yankees are traveling from St. Louis back to New York, a long train ride, multiple days. The team has private Pullman cars, places to sleep, places to eat, places to pass the time. Ruth has a tradition on these trips. He converts one of the women's restrooms into a makeshift bar. He brings in homebrew beer, racks of spare ribs, sets up shop, charges his teammates 50 cents. All you can eat, all you can drink. It is classic Ruth, turning every moment into a party. Most of the team participates. It has become a ritual, a bonding experience. But Waite Hoyt never goes. He walks past the open door of Ruth's makeshift bar every trip, sees the guys inside, drinking, eating, laughing, and he keeps walking. Because speaking to Ruth would mean acknowledging that the silence has ended, and Hoyt is too stubborn for that. Ruth is too stubborn for that. So, the silence continues. But on this particular trip in late 1924, something changes. The train is rattling through the Midwest, middle of nowhere, dark outside. Hoyt is walking through the Pullman car, heading to his sleeping berth. He walks past Ruth's bar. The door is open. He can smell the spare ribs, hear the laughter. He starts to walk past like he always does. But then he hears Ruth's voice. Not talking to him, talking to someone else, telling a story, making a joke, and something in Hoyt breaks. Not anger, not resentment, just exhaustion. He is tired. Tired of the silence, tired of the weight of it, tired of walking past that door. He stops, stands in the doorway. Ruth is inside, sitting on a wooden crate, beer in one hand, rib in the other. He sees Hoyt. For a moment, nobody moves, nobody speaks. The other players in the bar feel the tension. They know what is happening. They know what this moment means. Hoyt starts to turn away, starts to walk. But then Ruth speaks, and what he says is so simple, so ordinary, so unexpected. "Ah, come on, let us forget this. This is ridiculous." Hoyt stops, turns back. Ruth is looking at him, not with anger, not with resentment, just with the same exhaustion Hoyt feels. 2 years is a long time to carry a grudge. 2 years is a long time to maintain silence. 2 years is too long. Hoyt steps into the bar, grabs a beer, grabs a rib. Waite sits down across from Ruth. They do not talk about the fight. They do not apologize. They do not rehash what happened in that locker room in 1922. They just sit, eat, drink, and slowly, carefully, they start talking. About baseball, about the season, about nothing important. The conversation is awkward at first, halting, like two people learning a language they used to speak fluently. But gradually it becomes easier, more natural. By the time the train reaches New York, the silence is broken, not erased. The memory of that day in the locker room will never disappear. The image of Ruth in full uniform kicking a naked Hoyt with metal spikes. The tiny manager getting punched by both men while trying to separate them. The 2 years of stubborn, stupid silence. But the weight of it is gone. Ruth and Hoyt are teammates again, not just in name. In reality, years later, long after both men have retired, Waite Hoyt becomes a broadcaster for the Cincinnati Reds. He is beloved for his rain delay stories, tales from his playing days with the Yankees, and his favorite subject is always Babe Ruth. He talks about Ruth's talent, his generosity, his larger-than-life personality, and occasionally, very occasionally, he talks about the fight. When he does, his voice changes, gets quieter, more serious. He talks about sitting on that bench, naked, vulnerable, looking up at Ruth towering over him, the spike connecting with his ribs, the pain, the fury, the stupidity of it all. But he also talks about the train, the spare ribs, the moment Ruth said those words. "Let us forget this." And Hoyt always ends the story the same way. Ruth was a good guy. He was. We both were young. We both were stubborn. And we both wasted 2 years being angry over something that should have been resolved in 5 minutes. But that is who we were. That is who he was. And I would not trade those years with him for anything. Even the silent ones. The fight between Babe Ruth and Waite Hoyt never made the newspapers. The Yankees kept it quiet. Huggins never spoke about it publicly. The players who witnessed it kept it to themselves for decades. It was a private moment, a family matter. But it was also a lesson, a reminder that even the greatest teams have conflict, that even legends are human, that pride and stubbornness can poison relationships, and that sometimes the hardest thing to do is the simplest thing. Just talk, just forgive, just move on. Ruth and Hoyt pitched and hit together for several more years. They won World Series titles in 1927 and 1928. They became part of the greatest dynasty in baseball history. And when people talk about those Yankees teams, they talk about Murderers Row, about Ruth and Gehrig, about dominance and power. But they rarely talk about the fight in the locker room, the silence that followed, the reconciliation on a train. Because those are the moments that do not make it into record books, the moments that do not get remembered unless someone like Hoyt decides to tell the story. And even then, people often do not believe it. How could Babe Ruth kick a teammate with his spikes on? How could two grown men not speak for 2 years while playing on the same team? How could a manager as small as Miller Huggins get between two giants and take punches from both? But it happened, all of it. And the proof is in the silence, in the gap, in the 2 years when Ruth and Hoyt were teammates but not friends, when they shared a dugout but not a word, when they won games together but celebrated apart, and then in the reconciliation, in the beer and spare ribs, in the rattling train heading east, in the moment when stubbornness finally gave way to exhaustion, and two men decided that the fight was over. Not because anyone won, but because everyone was tired of fighting. That is the real story, not the violence, not the drama, but the healing, the choice to let go, the decision that 2 years is long enough. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit that you were wrong, even if the other person was wrong too, even if it means swallowing your pride, Even if it means sitting down across from someone who kicked you with metal spikes while you were naked and vulnerable and saying nothing about it. Just moving forward, just being teammates again, just being human. That is what Babe Ruth and Waite Hoyt did. And that is why, decades later, when Hoyt talked about Ruth on those rain delay broadcasts, his voice always carried respect, always carried affection, always carried the knowledge that their friendship survived something it should not have survived, because they chose to let it survive. And that choice, more than any home run or any strikeout, is what made them both champions.